Hello, welcome at culture-lovers.eu. This week we have Margaret of Bavaria, who will share the story of her life. It goes from Straubing to The Hague, and from Ghent to Dijon. It is all about the House of Burgundy. Very interesting. Let's listen to her story.
Hello. I am Margaret of Bavaria, and I will tell you about my life. So I guess the best place to start would be with my uncle William I, Duke of Bavaria, or better known as William V, Count of Holland. My grandmother, Margaret II of Avesnes, Countess of Hainaut and Countess of Holland, sent him to The Hague in 1346. He was to take up residence at Het Binnenhof and rule Holland from there. Unfortunately, my uncle contracted mental illness in 1354 and my grandmother asked my father to take over the rule over Holland. Therefore, my father Albrecht had to travel from Straubing to The Hague. The responsibility to guard over Holland was transferred to him. In the year 1363, I was born. I am not sure if it was The Hague or Bavaria, but that does not matter. It was a century filled with misery. There was a war between France and England, and the Black Death ravaged Europe. In 1362, the year before I was born, the St. Marcellus flood killed over 25,000 people. Certainly not the greatest of times. It was nevertheless the century in which I had to find my way. A marriage was arranged for me by my father in 1385. I was 22 years old at the time. My father-in-law, Philip the Bold from the Burgundian state, organized one of the biggest weddings of that time for two of his children. The wedding became known as the Double Wedding of Cambrai. I married there his son John and his sister Margareta married there Willem van Oostervent. The wedding was a bit strange, as John and Margareta were still children. At the time, John was 13 and Margareta was 10 years old. Willem and I were about 10 years older than our partners. As a whole, the wedding was overwhelming. The event lasted 8 days and 20,000 people attended, including the French King Charles VI. In 1404, the year Burgundy suffered from the St. Elizabeth flood, my father-in-law died and my husband became Duke of Burgundy. By that time, we already had 7 children. Our last child was born 3 years later. When my husband's mother died in 1405, he also became responsible for Flanders and Artois. Also at the same time, he was at odds with Duke Louis I of Orleans. Louis was the younger brother of King Charles VI of France. Charles VI was suffering from insanity at the time. Louis wanted to draw his brother's power to himself. A result of the conflicting interests and rivalry between Louis and my husband, the situation became very tense. It resulted in my husband having Louis murdered in the streets of Paris, which led to an open conflict between the houses of Armagnac and Burgundy. In the end, my husband was also murdered. This happened in 1419. He was ambushed at a bridge over the Yonne near Montereau, which you can find southeast of Paris. As the conflict progressed, my role in governing Burgundy became increasingly important. I ruled the northern part of the territory. I worked primarily from Ghent but also from Douai and Dijon. After my husband's passing, Philip the Good became his heir, and he asked me to continue my work. I died in Dijon in 1424. I was buried in the Chartreuse de Champmont, near Dijon, next to my husband John the Fearless and father-in-law Philip the Bold. We got the most stunning tombs. In Dijon, you can still see them at the Musée des Beaux-Arts. If you go there, do not forget to take a close look at the figures of mourners sculpted by Claus Sluiter in the base of the tomb of my father-in-law. It's hard to believe they are so old and so modern at the same time. Okay, so that is my story on how I navigated the 14th and 15th century. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Margaret. What a life, and what a wonderful story. The viewers may also benefit from reading Bart van Loo's book, The Burgundians, A Vanished Kingdom. In this book, Bart van Loo does a superb job of telling the story of the House of Burgundy. Additionally, you mentioned that Dutch viewers should listen to Bart van Loo's podcast, which I did. In one sitting, I listened to all 8 parts. I loved it. Anyway, this was this week's episode. I hope you liked it, and that you subscribe to the channel. Cheers!